Chamgeji tapkalenzina mangungu itugulole mitego ibaiba ya gigeregeti shetni po Kass TV itanga tsenglego igabe met kigure na Jacqueline Rusey kabara stande tinu walwe chingalege ngore tapkabaruna ikigure na umicherotich sisi tai tu yet not talk by equalization fund ole igora tagindo jini prime cabinet secretary Musalia Mudavadi enge masana talk pa KICC eng town tap Nairobi ole sisi tai ngoni gonu ngala letnete tergando ikchumite eng igora tak.
All aware that the Equalization Fund was actually established through the 2010 Constitution, which then set out under Article 204(1) that at least 0.5% of the revenue collected by the national government should be put into this fund. This is calculated on the basis of the latest audited and approved financial statements of the national government by the National Assembly. And this fund was supposed to be very specific, deliberate, and targeted. That is why it is clear in the Constitution that only 4 areas were to be covered: water, road sector, health, and electricity. If you look at Article 204(3) of the Constitution, it speaks to how this money should be expended. And so it could be done directly or indirectly through conditional grants to counties. The first, as has been mentioned, the first policy, which was developed 3 years after this fund came into operation. Actually, the first 3 years, with the advent of the Constitution, Your Excellency, this fund never received any money because there was no legal framework, there was no instrument. So later, from 2013, 2014, 2014, 15, 2015, 16, appropriation was made through an Appropriation Act in 2018 to actualize the fund, and over 12 billion shillings was allocated to this fund. But Your Excellency, the first policy so the fund administered directly by the national government through line ministries, MDS. And this was done through guidelines. There was no legal framework, but there were guidelines on the administration of this fund. Then in 2019, November, to be exact, 5th of November 2019, the High Court declared these guidelines unconstitutional, null, and void, thereby disbanding what was called the Equalization Fund Advisory Board, and this halted further expenditure from the fund. And then the court directed National Treasury to develop a statutory instrument on the administration of this fund. It is on this basis then that the Public Finance Management Equalization Fund Administration Regulations of 2021 were passed. And so by 29th of April 2021, this paved way for the indirect administration of the fund through the county governments as conditional grants. And this is done now. You have to have an Appropriation Act of the Equalization Fund, what we call Equalization Fund Appropriation Act, for each respective year. And that follows the DORA. So, Your Excellency, 2 policies have been developed since the beginning of this fund. One that ran through to 2018, and then 2018, a new policy was developed. The first policy worked with 14 counties, which were marginalized areas, and the focus of planning and budgeting was at the 14 counties. Now, Your Excellency, this has been changed in the second marginalization policy through the input of CRA to now put it to areas, and the areas have been reduced now to sub-locations. So the second policy is covering 1,424 areas, 366 wards, 111 constituencies and 34 counties. Your Excellency, I know this is going to be controversial, but you see, one reason why I'm at the Treasury is to give advice. It can be taken, it can be ignored. This fund was supposed to have impact, high impact. Spreading it thin, in my view, does not help the cause. I know there are marginalized areas almost everywhere across the country, including where I come from. In fact, 1 or 2 sub-locations in my constituency where I used to represent for 15 years are also benefiting. But I am not cabinet secretary to represent my area. I am cabinet secretary in charge of National Treasury for the whole country. So if something is not working, let us look at it. For me, my suggestion is simple. CRA, kindly, we need a debate, but kindly recommend we go back to a few counties where this money can have impact. This money was not meant to be spread this thing. That is my view, and I hold it so strongly. You can have a different opinion, but that is the fruit of democracy. We speak our minds. So, Your Excellency, I'm very proud that the actualization of this fund is now being done when I'm the cabinet secretary. So it is one of the things I'm very, very proud of. I know we have been implementing 360 projects, and I wanted just to answer or respond to the Chair, Council of Governors, that I've been assured that there are no pending bills under the equalization fund, that it is managed in a way that we procure what we can pay. As we speak today, out of the 10 billion, which was appropriated to this fund in 2023, by the way, there have only been 2 appropriations, 2018 and 2023. The appropriation of 2023, we have released already as National Treasury 2 billion shillings to this fund, and 1 billion has actually been released to the counties which are supposed to implement this. My guarantee is that we will make sure that we release all this money to the areas where it should be spent. So, Your Excellency, I wanted to just mention some of the challenges so that I conclude. It would be deceptive, Your Excellency, and that is not my character, to present as though the implementation of the fund has not been without challenges. The following are the challenges. 1, the long process of putting in place instruments for the fund, specifically the Appropriations Act. This has contributed to delays and accumulation of arrears. So we have representation here. We have members of parliament, both houses, National Assembly and the Senate, kindly fast track the appropriations of this fund. It doesn't help us to accumulate arrears. It puts pressure on us as National Treasury. If we would be seamlessly transferring the funds, appropriating and transferring the funds, then National Treasury would find it easy to release this fund. So that is the first ask from me. The lifespan of this fund has already been talked about. Again, the ball comes to Parliament. You need to relook or come up with amendments so that this fund is given another lease of life beyond the 20 years that was put in the Constitution.
Katesta egurset engandoigap county nebo Nandi ak ministry nebo somanet kochutyi akotoi teksetab koitalel Samoei University main campus eng taonitab Nandi Hills. Ole kamwa kandoikab NAT eng county nebo Nandi kole kikokake teksetab university notok eng taonitab Nandi Hills ngakikelumda koita neiboru kotauge teksenyi. Ole kamwa kole manyalu kobwa campuses alak county nebo Nandi chebo universities alak akomite university nebo Koitalel. Kinyor report kobun Cornelius Keter.
Kong'ololchin sirikab logoiwek eng taonitab Kapsabet komwa kandoichotok bo kibagengeitab Kenya National Union of Teachers eng county nebo Nandi kondochin National Trustee nebo NAT ako kora ko sirindet neo nebo kanetik eng Nandi East ak Tinderet Boniface Tenai kole tomo konai amune asikotomo kotestai teksetab University nebo Koitalel Samoei eng taonitab Nandi Hills nga kimwa serikali kole kikitobonchi chepkondok ole kasom Ministry nebo somanet ak kandoikab county nebo Nandi kochutchi asikoro kole katoigei teksetab University notok wendi kibwate orkoiyot Koitalel arap Samoei ngalek chikarobeut Josephat Serem nebo NAT mornetab Mosop.
Kiakonam kasitab teksetab University. Koroito nekiyaak kot kiro mashinishek kobendi kemboi ak kemeto ng'ung'unyek chekakebal netewernat amakararan koroto ingotebenyo kotemene kele ne. Kasarta nemakat ketech Koitalel Samoei University ko nguno ngoma nguno ko nguno missing kimeche university noto ako mi uwezekano mi mbaret kilejini kikobwa chepkondok
keungan ngalab Koitalel Samoei ketech university noto mi Nandi akoteka komye akeungan mkono kama wakaji wa hapa.
Kamwa NAT secretary nebo Aldai Kibie komisoi kole makoiyan keib mornok chebo universities alak kobwa county nebo Nandi amait ketoi university nebo Koitalel eng Nandi ole kasom kandoikab somanet kotakosub asikonai amune asikotomo kotestai university notok.
Ko kimeche kesom kandoik tugul kokochi priority akot yocheng'e branches chebo university kokochi boroindo Koitalel University koker kole kakitech notok kotomo kubwa universities alake chebunu counties alak.
Kotinygei ak siretab kanetik komwa NAT secretary nebo Chesumei ak Nandi Central Bernard Maiyo kole kikituptochi batai siretab kanetik chebo P1 ak kounotok komache kibagengeit nesire kanetik nebo Teacher Service Commission kotakosir kanetikab P1 eng mwaet kole mi alake eng kanetik che nekit koba retire amait kosir TSC.
Kufikia saizi wale wa P1 wengi wame-upgrade. Lakini shida ambayo tunaye kwa wakati huu ni kwamba hao wamefika 44 years, wengine wamefika 45 years. Na ile umri ya kuajiri mtu ni 45 years. Sasa hao ambao wamekatazwa nafasi ya kuajiriwa kwa wakati, wataenda wapi? So tunaomba TSC yetu i-consider P1 teachers especially on age factor, wala ambao wamefika 45 years waajiriwe as we wait for the other recruitment.
The P1s are languishing. The art teachers are also languishing. We advise TSC to make sure that every time there is employment vacancy, it is all inclusive. Because all teachers are the same. Like my brother Mayu has said, we have teachers who have trained and are due for retirement without employment. Sure. That is a very big shame.
Kong'ete taonitab Kapsabet eng county nebo Nandi, logoiwekab emet chebo Kass, kainenyu ko Cornelius Keter.
Kakikoito kurset eng kabatikab bandek komatkwalda kesutikwak chebo kenyit ematinwek chebo sang asimabit rubet eng emet. Kamwa sirindet neo eng ministry nebo kabatisiet Kiprono Rono kole kikotoret serikali kabatik konyor mbolea eng olyet nemi takchinetab keker kele kakimong amitwogik chomotin eng emet ako noto konyolu eng kabatik kwalda kesutikwak eng siroshek chebitunotin eng emet. Kong'ololi eng komasta nebo Mau Narok.
The government from next week will be paying the remaining debts for all our maize farmers because we have availed the money so that the farmers can have money to start the next production. So in the same way, I want to urge those wheat millers to immediately move with speed and pay the wheat farmers their money. I'm also aware that there are a lot of exportation of our cereal crops, especially maize. It is good for our maize farmers to get market outside, but I expect them to sell their maize outside at a premium price because we have really facilitated our farmers with subsidized fertilizers to produce the required quantity of maize we require in the country. We don't want to run into famine after such a pamba harvest because of now exportation by pair means a very cheap price of export, where our farmers are also not getting value for their products.
Tete serikali kosuldaen tetutik chebo kabisisietab mbarenik anan irrigation eng komaswek cheterter chebo Baringo County. Yutok ko kosubkei ak minister nebo kabatisiet Eric Mugaa nekamwa kole tetat kebis ekaisiek 700 chebo mbarenik eng komaswek cheyomotin eng county notok asikotoret eng kamangunetab amitwogik.
Baringo Cluster Project, one of our irrigation schemes, to irrigate more than 764 acres. It is shared between two constituencies of Mogotio and Elda Maravin. And with me, I have the PS and the area MPs. We are on our routine checks to make sure that the people of Baringo get value for money. The project is on course and it will be of great benefit to the people of Mogotio because we expect more than 1,000 farmers to benefit from this project. 764 acres is not a joke. And we are looking at the broader Baringo County, which is one of the largest counties in the country, more than 11,000 kilometers squared. We are also exploring the possibility of using Lake Baringo to do irrigation. And we are having a stakeholders meeting of all the leaders tomorrow to start that discussion. Because food security is one of the ministries mandated, especially on matters rice. And we owe it to build infrastructure and empower our farmers. I think His Excellency the President has made that very clear.
Ule mradi wa kutoa maji kutoka lake Baringo kuleta hapa mlimani ndiposa tuweze kunyunyuzia ekari 100 ni mradi wa maana sana. Contractor tumezungumza na yeye, huo mradi unafaa ukamilike Februari, mwezi wa pili mwaka ujao. Na ule mradi ukikamilika, tafadhali na waomba tena wazee, kina mama, vijana na wasi sana, muhakikishe kuwa yale maji hayataishi katika yale matangi pale juu, kwa sababu hayatumiki kulima. Ukulima ni njia moja ya serikali ikiongozwa na rais wetu Dr. Samuel William Ruto ya kupunguza upungufu wa chakula nchini. Na raundi Baringo iko kipaumbele kuhakikisha kwamba chakula kinazalishwa hapa, chakula kinalishwa hapa, na chakula kinasaidia kupunguza ule food deficit yenye tuko nayo katika nchi yetu ya Kenya.
Katestai kurset eng mornok tugul chebo serikali konamgeun akobais eng kibagenge asikosulda boisionik keyochi biikab emet. Kamwa Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki kole ngandan tononjingei kebeberta age tugul nebo serikali komanyolu kobit kabeletabgei eng kwenutab mornochoto koboto kapkirwok, bunge ak executive. Ng'ololi Kindiki eng kananetab rani eng igorta nebo lumdaetab strategic plan nebo Director of Public Prosecutions eng komasta nebo Loresho eng county nebo Nairobi.
We require convergence. Without interfering with any independent institution, we must find ways of the entire government facilitating, each arm facilitating the other to realize its vision. Parliament playing its role, the executive playing its role, the judiciary helping us by not also dragging government programs, and that discussion is ongoing and is making a lot of progress so that instead of, for example, of a case that is a public interest matter involving huge government programs and investments of public funds being delayed for 10, 20 years, we are asking the judiciary that we do not require a favorable judgment. Let the judgment be on merit, but please let the judgment be made fast enough so that we can decide whether to free the resources to other programs or not, other than holding it back in endless injunctions, conservatory orders, and other things until it is disposed of 20 years after the fact. Independent institutions and offices are independent in 4 aspects. First, decisional independence, that you have the independence to make decisions without interference from any authority or quarters. the decisions you make on who to prosecute, which prosecution to terminate, those ones, nobody should, and no institution or should interfere with that decisional independence. Secondly, administrative independence, whereby ODPP as an independent institution must run its programs and projects administratively under the chain of command that is established. Thirdly, financial and budgetary independence. The moment you receive your resources, how you spend them, nobody should interfere with that. And finally, operational autonomy, that your operations must be independent from interference from any other quarter. Beyond that, the rest of the ground calls for interdependence, collaboration, cooperation with other arms of government so that you can deliver on your mission.
Kangekoito koyomiset serikali eng chemung'arainik chebo emetab China chemite eng emoni kole ribotin mung'arosiekwak eng emetab Kenya. Kamwa Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi ne inendet kora ko Minister nebo Tilyanditab Emotinwekab Sang kole manyalu eng chemung'arainikab China kosich kaiweisiet age tugul amu ribotin malikwak. Kong'alalen korta nebo kaseseretab kiokindetab China ne mondoi eng Kenya.
Please be assured that your successor and embassy team will continue to receive utmost support from the Kenya government for the benefit of our people and countries. In addition, the government will ensure the Chinese community, which has supported attainment of national development priorities, is safe while securing their investments. Your Excellency, as you settle back in Beijing, we trust you will help in including Kenya as a priority in the implementation of 2024 Beijing FOCAC summit outcomes and the South-to-South cooperation model for many African countries to emulate in the region.
You may understand why the Chinese are so confident in Kenya. Why more and more Chinese investors are willing to put their investment in Kenya? Because we sense opportunities. We see hope. We witness significant, tangible, sustainable changes. As China's representative here, I'm very proud of your achievement. And on your road to make changes for Kenyans, make transformations for Kenyans, China is one of your reliable partners. And this partnership, by essence, is mutually beneficial. We are supporting each other. And we, in the embassy, and my team can testify, we always talk to the Chinese communities in Kenya. Without the trust of the host government and the host people, how can you have such a good life in Kenya?
Chitab Kalenjin kakituk chotok kaimetab logoiwek chok chebo emet chekakimuch kebun kong'ete studio nebo Kass TV kikurenan Jacqueline Aruse kabarastoindet nekawalwech ng'alek eng oretab kabarunoik kekurenan Omicheroti. Chamakun kit age tugul nemie.